So would you share the story of how we first ended up at the Hello Sunshine conference in 2024?
Okay. My good friend Laura told me about this event that her friend Megan went to. And I was like, well, anything Reese Witherspoon does, count me in. I want to be a part of that. I initially thought, oh, it's the book club. It's going to be focused on the books and all of these authors, and some of them she's turned into series or movies or these wonderful productions. And I thought, well, either way, even if I don't know much about it, I still want to go. And then I thought I should tell Andrea, because you were going through a very big shift in your life. And I texted you and I was like, here's the link. I'm signing up right now. It's happening in October 2024. I think we were a couple months out, maybe even a month out.
We were. Yeah.
And you were like, yes, sure. Just bought the ticket. That's literally what you did.
What I did.
Okay.
Not
we didn't know
typically
each
me.
other that well either
No.
at that point. And
No.
then we started talking quickly about we're going to share a hotel because that would be more efficient with money because you just stepped away from your job. And
That's
I never
right.
know where life is going to take me financially because I freelance. Did you want to enter into your thoughts for this part? Or do you want me to keep going?
Gosh, that's so funny. Keep going. I
Okay.
love hearing these details.
So let's flash forward to, we've got the hotel, we've got our tickets, we're ready to go. We show up at the hotel and you're like, Krista, what is this? What are we doing tomorrow? And I'm like, I don't really know. I've never been, but my understanding is that there's lots of panels. There'll be an incredible group of women who are sharing stories. There's some workshops. There'll be authors, there'll be books, there'll be food, there'll be drinks, there'll be time to socialize. And we're going to be rolling in there with a group of friends who somehow we gathered together. And for me, my experiences are very much about the people that are around me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily where I am. It's more about the people that I'm with.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we just went. We showed up. We walked in. I was mesmerized by all the beautiful decor and how everything was so organized and set up. And somehow somebody had saved us a seat. So we ended up in the front row of the very first opening remarks. And there was a comedian who stepped onto stage. And later I found out that you were terrified of stand-up comedians because
Terrified.
you don't like it when they could reach out to you and make fun of you or point at you and get you involved in the conversation. But there wasn't even a second a breath for you to adjust. And this comedian was like,
okay, it's inspired by Betty.
So Betty and I share the same birthday.
You share the same birthday as Betty. So what I'm getting is you stalked Betty White for a long time. Okay, you stalked Betty White and then you made a podcast about it. I love that. And that's running a Shempire. That is what is running a Shempire.
And in the end, we ended up walking out of that first session being known as the half-betties. Do you remember? And whenever we were introducing ourselves, oh, cool, what's your name? What do you do? Da, da, da. And then people would stop and be like, oh, wait, you have a podcast? Are you the half-betties? And we became the half-betties.
Half-betties.
So right out of the gate, it was very exciting. I think we kind of went in there knowing that we were starting the podcast. We had all these ideas swarming around in our head, but the big one was women in their midlife sharing stories. And that was the core of it. And when we started talking to people and meeting people, and it was so easy to do because we were surrounded by like-minded individuals, it was just so reassuring that this is exactly where we needed to be. To me, it felt like I was with all of my friends.
Yeah.
Some friends I hadn't met yet, but we became friends. And some of them we've had on our podcast.
We have.
And
I know.
So, yeah. So that's kind of like in my perspective,
I love that.
like how it all started.
It's so good, Krista, because as I said, we all have our way of experiencing and then interpreting and then creating the story, the memory of what happened. You did touch on so many of the things that really stood out for me with that experience, including going back to me saying yes everything in my life was now different than it had been. So I felt like I went from being tethered by things that were grounded in schedule, consistency. I knew who I was going to be sharing each day with, whether it was with my team at work or with my family. And everything had changed. I had an empty nest. I had two daughters who were no longer in the house. I had walked away from a role that was no longer serving me, and it was a really difficult decision. There had been family experiences, extended family experiences that included some really tough times with grief and loss. You know, what am I doing in my career? I felt completely untethered. And so, bless Krista Gruen, when you came along, after only really having probably like about a 5-month or 6-month friendship at this point, but we were already partners in Half Betty because that happened instantaneously. But when you came along with your kind and generous soul and said, why don't you come to this thing with me? It's going to be great. And I've got a bunch of friends that we're going to be connecting with. So you're going to have a group of women that you're going to get to meet. Whatever happened in that moment didn't even make me think about it. I literally did what you described. I left the text with you. I went over to my computer. I went on to the ticket purchase, and then everything unfolded. And while that's really uncharacteristic, it was exactly what I needed to do at that time. And so one of the lessons that I took away from that was sometimes you can just say yes. And did that ever pay off? Because not only did I get to go to that conference last year and have the experiences that I had, including uncomfortable ones. In fact, it started with the comedian who was amazing. Of course, she was brilliant.
She's so amazing.
But wow, to get called out when, yes, stand-up comedians actually make me quite uncomfortable. They don't themselves, but I get secondhand discomfort if somebody's getting heckled and I can see that they're not comfortable. I feel really uncomfortable for them. Or if the comedian is really struggling and they're not getting the laughs or reaction from the audience, again, it's all empathy based. It was all of those moments. It was your friends that I got to become part of, who just accepted me entirely, this kind of untethered woman that just shows up. There was no questions asked. It was just like, come on in. And that was how it felt at the conference with hundreds of women. Come on in exactly where you are, untethered or not.
Yeah.
Not really knowing what's going on in your life or feeling as though you're not in control like you like to be. And it doesn't matter. Come on in. Show up where you are. And so that acceptance into your group of friends,
Totally.
and then extending that out to all the women that were at the conference who we walked away with, many of them being now extended friends out there and people that we've had on our show.
Mm-hmm.
It just shed such a light on the powerful impact of being in connection with each other physically.
Yes.
And how in this world now, that is one of the things that has really disrupted human connection and feeling part of something, is that we have, through technology, allowed people to not have to be together. And wow, when you show up in a space with other humans and you feel that energy all interlinking, there is nothing that technology can do to replicate that experience. In that space, nothing that we could have done other than going to that conference would have allowed for the same kinds of connections. So I'm so grateful for you, as always, for introducing me to this experience. I'm also really proud of myself for saying yes.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is us being not shameful or shy about taking care of ourselves and also giving ourselves credit, because it's not bragging. That's part of what we need to remove, is this idea that by giving ourselves thanks or congratulating ourselves, or as my mother-in-law says, giving herself a high five, we're allowed to do that. And so I'm really proud of myself for, at a really tough time, being brave and joining a group and then an experience where I really didn't know people very well at all. And so it started there, but then of course we've just gotten back from this year and we're once again full of so much. And so that's part of what this is about, being able to share our biggest takeaways. And I know what you're taking away from this year. So do you want to share that?
Yes. First, I want to say that I'm really proud of you for acknowledging that you were brave and bold in saying yes to something new and different. I also wonder if maybe you hadn't had a chance to really process or think about where your feet were. I can imagine that saying yes just felt like the right thing to do. There's always a time when you kind of have a choice, or you don't have a choice because finances are in the way and you just have to go to the next thing and keep moving. You were in a really interesting space where you could take a pause and say, I'm just going to say yes. And I think that was really aligned. And we talk about intuition. My word is alignment and yours is intuition. And I think that also might have been birthed from what we experienced last year too. So
such a good point. So true. Thank you. I really do appreciate the acknowledgement. And again, just how much you notice and how much you care. It is truly a beautiful quality, one of many, but one that I really deeply appreciate.
Big love fest over here.
Big love fest.
So when we got the email about potentially coming back to Shine Away for 2025, I mean, there wasn't a hesitation this time. It was just instant. And then now that we have this little WhatsApp thread of all of our Shine Away ladies.
That's right.
There's 8 of us or 9 of us in there. And boom, we were done. We were already making plans, like where we were going to stay and how this was all going to go down. And we all showed up on the first day knowing that it was a different location. So I want to point out too, is that for myself, I have to manage my expectations when I'm going into these types of things, especially if I've done them before. Like, it's not going to be the same as last year. It's going to be a different experience. We know some things, but let's go in with an open mind. One thing we did know for sure is that we were going with our friends and we would meet new friends and we would be inspired. Those are the things that we knew 100% to be true.
Well
and
said.
so it was still in LA. It was at Universal Studios on the lot in a huge sound stage with 2 other buildings that had, one had like food and beverage. And then the other building had 3 levels where you got food and everything on the bottom. And then there was 2 smaller spaces on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Plus, of course, the book club, all the books that you could buy and read and take home and meet authors, which was so beautiful. And I think maybe what we haven't done is actually describe what this actually is. It's not a summit. It's not a conference. They don't label it, which at the beginning, I was puzzled as to what to call it and why there wasn't a category. But I actually really love that about Shine Away because it allows everyone to explain it in their own way. And for me, the way I explain it is kind of like a summit. There are panels, there are workshops, which are in more intimate spaces and are interactive. And then there are spaces that you can sit in, wander in. There's a market with female founders sharing their products. There is all these opportunities to mix and mingle and rest and sit and enjoy. This space was so much bigger than it was last year. There was this huge place in the middle with lots of grass and chairs and couches. It was designed beautifully. Signage, we talked about how wonderful it was to navigate through the spaces. And So getting to what I love about this year is everyone that shared a story or an experience that was sitting up on the stage or in front of us. They weren't just talking about the celebration of something that had just happened, like a launching of a book. They weren't celebrating the future of what is to come. It was more so about talking to the lead up of what got them to where they are. And I appreciate that so much. And you and I talk a lot about letting people in to see the journey that leads up to where you want to get to. And I really appreciated all those stories. I also really appreciated the experts that were there talking about what they're really skilled at. One of them in particular that I had really wanted to meet before I got there. I had no idea if we were going to connect, but I just believed it in my heart that we would at some point. And sure enough, we did. I was leaving a workshop. She was coming in and I almost walked away and I took a deep breath and I turned around and I asked her if that was who I thought it was. She was like, yes. And the look on her face was like, how do you know who I am? And I was like,
I love
I
that.
follow you. This is beautiful. And hey, thank you for all you do. It was just a simple thank you because I'm so enamored by her impact in the world of infertility and what she's doing there and how she's helping people. And it's something that I've experienced in my past. And I felt like there wasn't anything like what she's providing. And so it was the in-between moments as well for me that were so beautiful and so special.
I love that. That is such a good description. I was there, so of course I can picture what you're describing, but I love how you really pay attention to an environment and to the details, because we know that there's as much beauty and perfect run of show that you're going to experience is connected to leading up to the moment. So I think it's really important to highlight how much work goes into creating an experience for people. That's a beautiful way of paralleling the importance of the work that we put into an experience or the work that we put into ourselves and how that's going to show up. So I really appreciate that description and that moment of you. So from my lens, we were sitting in the front row, and when we were filing out, because we were all going to another session, and then myself and the friend turned around and we're like, oh, where's Krista? And you had literally done a U-turn. You'd gone right back in to the session, and you then stayed because you had at that point bravely approached this person and had introduced yourself, and there had been this amazing opportunity for you to strike up a conversation that really resonated with her. And the exchange between the two of you was so beautiful, as you described. And that was a moment that wasn't planned, that was unforeseen, and also counted on you being brave. So there's a theme of bravery or courage that's running through a lot of this. Your description leads really beautifully to what one of my big takeaways is. And I was saying to you earlier, what I'm starting to become clearer and clearer on is this sense of a way of being or a way of perceiving my experience in this life. The moments that stood out for me were unplanned. So one, we were at the event when Diane Keaton passed away. And we were all in what would have been a perfectly curated presentation. And then everything stopped. And Reese Witherspoon came back out on stage, sat down on the couch, and very vulnerably, honestly, and beautifully shared her experience of Diane Keaton and her being one of her first mentors and what she meant to her. And that to me was such an incredibly powerful moment of humanity and how we connect with one another in those moments that we don't anticipate. And so that moment, the the little tiny conversations, and sometimes they were just an exchange of a couple of words with somebody, but they were meaningful. They were thoughtful. There were multiple interactions that I had that really were nothing more than, as an example, one of the Shine Away team standing at the entrance to this camera that you can do this slow-mo kind of movement to. The woman that was standing at the entrance to this experience, at one point I had to walk past her to go to the washroom, and I was on my own. She said, "Would you like to come in? There's nobody in here right now." And I said, "You're so kind, and no thank you." And she laughed. And she said, "Oh, but why? You'd be great. It would be wonderful." And I said, "Because I feel so awkward. And also I've done it." And she said, "Well, you do know that it's supporting breast cancer and encouraging women to get screened." And I said, "You know what? I missed that when I came in before." I said, "Thank you for sharing that. That's really meaningful." And I said, "That touches, I'm sure, everybody in many ways. It does me with my own experience with my mom." And I said, "My mom is still with us." And she said, "Bless your mom. I'm so glad to hear that." And that moment, just that tiny exchange on the way to the bathroom, was so meaningful and so lovely. And she was such a beautiful woman. And it's all of those experiences that are in the practice of kintsugi, which is the Japanese practice of mending broken things, typically pottery or ceramics, being mended with gold to fix those broken seams back together. And that when that piece reemerges with gold filling its broken cracks and it is now whole again, that it is actually far more beautiful than it was even before. So that was a philosophy and a practice and a belief that really resonates for me. And one of the speakers was, in fact, sharing her Japanese background and her own philosophies rich in wabi-sabi. And that to me was in many ways symbolic of the entire experience. It is those in-betweens. It is those little tiny fragmented moments that are unplanned, maybe sometimes not perfect. But when you mend them with a connection and an interaction that's very real, what comes out of that is far more beautiful than it even was before. And so to me, this conference is about both the beautiful and intact and perfectly created and then it is those amazing layered moments that are unplanned for, that are human, that are maybe a bit gritty or imperfect. Those to me are just exactly what make it the most kind of enriching and valuable and truly moving experiences. And I will be going for as long as this conference exists, until I am hopefully Betty White's age and 99 3/4.
Oh my gosh, yes. Can we? Yes, I will be right with you. Yes, every year.
Yes, you will. Of course you will. Also,
This
you'll be
can't
younger.
ever stop.
So you can keep going.
I have a question for you. So thank you for sharing all of that. And I love the in-between moments because that's also what I love about all conferences and summits and things that I attend to. I'm wondering if there was a shift in your confidence of where you were coming in versus where you were at the moment and then afterwards. Because for me, leaving the first Shine Away that we attended was 2024, it felt like a catapult.
Yeah.
Like that moment of leaving and not wanting it to be over, even up until the very, very, very last minute when they were kicking everybody out and we were like,
That's
we just
right.
have one more conversation, one more picture to take, one more person
That's so
to
true.
just wrap
That's so
up a
true.
conversation. Literally last year and this year it happened. It felt like this moment of like, okay, we got work to do. Let's go. I launched myself into Half Betty last year. And this year I'm
Yeah.
launching myself in again to other projects and personal stuff too. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm just wondering if there was a shift.
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
me, I wonder if it was
So
confidence.
tell
No,
me the distinction of what last year to this year, did it change for you? Or as you described, you used the word catapult. So did it catapult you last year into something? And
yeah,
this year, again, you're catapulting into what you're
yeah,
doing. There's more maybe this year than last
yes,
year. Like
so
you're actually
much.
now going into more. So it's
Yeah.
almost a build on what last year was for you.
Yeah, I'm a visual person, so I'm seeing it in levels, which for some
Yes.
might not register or feel comfortable. But for me, it was like last year I walked in open and grounded, but excited and just wide eyed.
Yeah.
I walked away reassured that Half Betty is what people need.
Yeah.
And I say people because it's not just women in their midlife.
No.
We have experienced incredible things and
Yeah.
people that have come up to us that have just poured their heart and soul into us. We're like, wow, that registered with you? Okay, taking a note.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah.
And then Half Betty launched in January
Mm-hmm.
of 2025. And here we are almost a full year later of our journey with Half Betty and this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which we all know that it's a movement and it's going to be so much bigger than just a podcast. I've gained technical knowledge. I've gained experience in the
Mm-hmm.
podcast world, which I never had before. Like going into last year's Shine Away, I don't even think we had recorded an episode yet.
We hadn't. No, you're right. We hadn't.
So all of the things I've learned since doing that. And now I feel like I leveled up. And so I walked into Shine Away this year on that next level. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh, okay, I know all these things. I'm a little bit more confident. I'm a little bit more excited. I'm going to manage my expectations because I don't want to compare to last year. I'm already inspired looking around at the people and everything that's going on in the schedule and the lineups. So for me, leaving this year, I'm so curious to see where I'm going to be in 2026 when I come back to
Yeah.
Shine Away because I'm catapulted again and like, let's take life seriously, also have some fun, and let's set some big goals.
Yeah.
Let's share
Yeah.
our dreams. Let's share our goals because if you put it out there, it's entirely possible now. You've said
Mm-hmm.
it. It's like, oh, I said it. So, okay, I got to do this now.
There's
So I'm just
accountability,
like,
but
let's
there's
go.
also help because somebody might have heard that and
Yes.
now they say, oh,
Yes.
I remember Krista saying such and such, and I have somebody that I'd love to introduce her. So you're right.
Yes.
There's way more chance of that manifesting when it's not just living in your own world.
Yeah.
So if I can summarize a little bit of what I heard is that these conferences in many ways act as an injection of inspiration, energy, the sense of possibility, the excitement around what you can put out there that you can do, and
Yes.
that then becoming a reality.
Yes.
And that's what I'm taking away.
Yes.
I love it.
Yes.
I would say that's very much a good description for how I feel about it. And I think what I would additionally layer on just from my own seat, because I was in such a different place last year than I am this year, there is maybe a little bit of a distinction around what I'm taking away. And that is last year. Well, last year I was completely untethered. The podcast hadn't started. I was wondering what living in my home with just my husband and I and not my girls here was going to feel like. I was wondering, how is the world unfolding? I just didn't have anything that felt like a handrail, if you will. I felt handrail-less. And so
Like a beautiful balloon.
well, I
Floating
don't know
in the
how
wind.
beautiful, like a raggy balloon with all these like things hanging off it. And so when I left the conference last year, what it did for me was it gave me this enormous sense of relief that, one, I'm not the only person out there. You hear a lot of stories of women, and that's why Half Betty is resonating so deeply. And that is because midlife brings a lot of change. And so by going to the conference and speaking to other women who were anywhere between 35 and 65, those mid years, I heard time and time again, I've left my career, I'm starting something new, I'm starting an entrepreneurial journey, I've written my first book, I've just gotten divorced, my mom has just passed away, my kids have left for school, all similar things that so many of us are experiencing. And when I left, it was like an affirmation that half Betty
I just got shivers. Oh, whew. Yes.
is
Keep going.
doing what the conference did for me, which is to highlight that I'm not by myself. This experience is unique to me, but it's not a unique experience.
Mm.
And so I left with a confidence that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Look at all the friends I just made. I've got skills still. That there is belief from other people that this work that you and I are doing is important. And that was what I was really missing at that point, especially when one of the most important jobs, I'm going to pause so that I can keep my composure. One of the most important jobs has been being a mom.
Mm.
And with that job change, I didn't get fired from that job. My girls are keeping me. But with that job shift,
Mm.
I needed something to help me recognize that things aren't linear. They don't go in an organized step-by-step pattern in life at all.
Yeah.
But what I knew was that just like the value that I now can say I have brought to the role of being a mom and being who I am to my girls, there is similar value in bringing to life and in some ways being like a set of parents, you and I, raising half Betty and creating
Yeah.
this space. The value that this brings for other people is what is now filling my bucket. And when I left last year, I was like, wow. When I felt like, where do I add value? Because that's so important to all humans. But where was I adding value now? And when I left that conference, I was like, oh my gosh, this is where I can add value. This is where I can create something that will help people. Because being in service of others is at my core. And so knowing that I could be part of Half Betty with you and now with a growing group of left me feeling as though it's all okay. You're on the right path. You're not lost. You're not untethered. You're not floating that raggy balloon. It's actually not. It's super grounded. And so last year, that was the biggest takeaway. And this year, I would say it's further affirmation of that. So this is valuable. This is important. And this is not just important for me and you, but it is so important for so many. And that makes me feel so fulfilled. But the other big piece is the incredible need for human to human physical interaction, a touch on your shoulder, a hug,
Hugs.
a hug,
Good hugs. The
and
best hugs.
good hugs, and for feeling what it's like to be in a space with other people where that space has been designed to allow people to connect, because we've lost third spaces in this world due to so many factors.
Yeah.
And we don't gather in big groups anymore. We don't gather in libraries, or we don't gather in town halls, or we don't gather in So there's so many third spaces that don't exist anymore. And so when we have the opportunity to bring people together, what happens there, you can't replicate.
It's true. And that's why we're going to start planning more live events, because
That's right.
it's needed so desperately. When people get together in person, incredible things can happen.
When you create spaces for people to gather, you're creating the opportunity for micro moments of interaction that spark all kinds of innovation and ideation and friendships and new businesses and things that are ridiculous, but who cares, because it's so fun. And you don't even know if an exchange with somebody could save a life.
Yeah.
You don't know when you're not having those interactions face to face, what the other person is experiencing and what they would have taken from that unplanned interaction of, how are you doing? So if we can help build out the spaces for people to find those connections, share those micro moments, and then also be part of a bigger collective of humans just trying their very best to have a handrail, then that's us doing something really valuable. And that's why I, from this session, just couldn't be more excited about what we get to continue to do with halfbetty and what we can continue to learn from, you know, the people like the Reese Witherspoons and all these other amazing humans that are doing wildly impactful things. There's so many for us to connect with and learn from and maybe partner with and be those two that come together and say, you know what, if we put our two together, look at what we could do.
Yep.
So I'm just so excited about who we're going to meet, who we get to talk to, what we get to learn, what we get to do, and how we can continue to build something that's making a difference.
Same friend.
Same friend.
Okay, well, I think that's all for today. I know we can always go and talk more and more, but for now, we will leave this conversation, although it will not be finished. It never is finished when we are so inspired and feeling positive and excited about what's to come.
Thank you for setting this up. Thank you for being you. Appreciate you.
Thank you for being you. I'm so happy. Okay, I have to go. I have to go and do some
me too.
really wonderful things. And you too.
Okay, you go do wonderful things.
Okay, bye.
Bye.